Thank you for joining the DIMPRP Podcast, the podcast that brings together public relations professionals and influencers. I am your host, Vanessa Abron, and I'm glad you joined us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce to you today's guest, Jessa Lynn. Jessa Lynn is the blogger-in-chief behind Dollface Diaries. Dollface Diaries is a passionate fashion and lifestyle blog headed by Jessa, who is also a SEO strategist by day. Jessa is a 5-foot-tall lover of fashion, travel, and French fries. We're very similar in a lot of ways, as you can see. She loves blogging and sharing her insights on the latest fashion trends, positive lifestyle, and her love for plant-based cuisine while exploring new cities. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for Miss Jessa Lynn. Hi, Jessa. Just to bring you up to speed, this is, as you already know, I was doing the Digital Influencers Meet PR Pros event, and I decided, let's turn this into a podcast because, A, there's so many people that I want to talk to and that I want to hear their thoughts on this, on this topic, but can't ever really get them in all the events that I do. Mm-hmm. And then now it's like we can't do events the way that we want to. And I always want to do this podcast anyway. So it's like, why not now?
Yeah.
Welcome to Vanessa trying to do this podcast for the first time.
I feel like COVID has been like the biggest opportunity opening experience for everyone. I started working on an SEO course. I talked about it occasionally, and I've done SEO for 8 years, and I've kind of kept it in the background of my blogging. But now I'm like, hey, to make money and educate other bloggers on a topic that really is a challenging topic for this industry, why not make a course and sell it to people? I feel like it's kind of COVID's kind of turned those pipe dreams into okay, I need to do this for myself because I've been putting it off.
So how far along are you in this SEO course development?
I've been looking for platforms to host it on because I want to pre-record it and have worksheets and pre-recorded short videos to kind of go along with everything. So I've been looking for hosting sites, and then I also have my outline of my videos, kind of how each step I want to take. I'm trying to figure out how many videos I want to do exactly, but kind of created the skeleton of what the course will be laid out as.
So you're in the skeleton development stage?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, well, if you need help, let me know.
Definitely reach out, because I was talking to Allie the other day actually, and we were talking about Taylor. I was like, oh, I might have to pick Taylor's brain too. So I'm adding you to my list of people to reach out to about this.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So let's tell the people who are we've been talking, we've been having this conversation. Who are you? What do you do? What is your name?
Hi, I'm the nameless blogger. I'm Jessa. I'm a petite fashion and lifestyle blogger who on the side does search engine optimization, trying to bring it into a little bit more of the conversation of my blog. Yeah, mostly petite fashion and healthy living.
How did you get into blogging?
Actually, so I started my blog in 2013. So years and years and years ago, when LiveJournal was what people were blogging on, or Tumblr even. And it started out actually as a music review blog.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
and we just had this whole conversation about music, and you found out my secret music pass, and you have a secret music pass too.
Music pass too. I wanted to do A&R so bad.
Oh my gosh, Jessa, we need to do something. We need to do a blog or a podcast on music.
I know, right? So yeah, it started as a music blog, and then it turned into a journal style blog. And that's kind of how like the Dollface Diaries became the name. It was more of like a conversation on my life rather than like focused on fashion every single post. And when Instagram came in, I think around like 2014, I started doing like daily outfits, the OOTD hashtag.
I remember.
So that's kind of how I brought the fashion aspect into the blog. And then I started working, my first job out of school was in link building for SEO. And we were reaching out to bloggers and asking them to write blog posts on different topics associated with our clients. And I'd get these emails back. And I spent all day like looking at blogs, and I loved reading the fashion blogs. And I was like, you know what? I could do this. And I was starting to get like emails back saying like, oh, my price for a blog post is $200. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Like, I could really do this. Like, I really think that like all my friends ask me for like, beauty product advice and where to find a pink dress at this length. And I send them all these like ideas and in different price points. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make it a blog. I'm going to start writing about this stuff, the trends that I'm seeing, the trends that I'm loving, and educate people on the topic. So that's kind of how it started. And I had my ex-boyfriend taking all of my photos for 4 years. Bless his soul, because poor man probably never wants to pick up a camera again. But yeah, it just kind of continued after that.
It's so funny you say that, because I learned just recently that that's how it has to be. Like, if you're going to be an influencer, if you want to date an influencer, then you might as well be ready to be a photographer. Because I've started to realize that I'm like, how are they getting all these who's taking these pictures? Like, are they just riding around with a photographer every day? It's like, no, the significant other is the one that's taking the picture. So yes, shout out to those people.
Oh my gosh, the Instagram boyfriends, like, they're the real deal. I've seen so many like duos too. Like my favorite blogger who lives in London, her blog.
Oh, what's her name? I might follow her. I think I know who you're talking about.
Victoria McGrath.
Okay.
She's a fashion blogger, and her husband create these amazing campaigns. They just did basically a mini commercial for Urban Decay's new mascara. It's gorgeous. And he filmed it all and edited it all. Like he has done incredible things for her career. So she gets all the deals, and I'm pretty sure they probably collaborate on the ideas, but then he executes everything. He takes all of her photos. Some of the photos that he's taken have been featured on magazines and things like on magazine online publications. Like, it's incredible.
So you know that when whoever is your next boyfriend, he has to be a photographer.
He has to be a photographer.
He has to be a photographer or videographer. If you're not a photographer or videographer, or at least trying to pursue to be a photographer or videographer, you need not apply.
Yeah. First date, you need to bring your resume.
What do you love most about content development?
Oh man, I think really lately I've been working with a lot of photographers. So I've given the men in my life the freedom to be just romantic interests. And I've cultivated these incredibly creative minds that have liked to work with me. So I think that coming up with new concepts for the photography, getting really creative with my posing and the props, like we were saying with the bubbles and stuff, really stepping out of the box of the typical influencer photos has been really fun. But then I also love digging deep into a topic that I'm interested in. So recently I did a post on sunscreen and taking care of your skin and protecting your skin from the sun. And I had fun finding a little bit more information other than just here's a bunch of products that you can use to protect your skin. I was looking into, there's actually two different types of sunscreens. There's physical and chemical. And physical sunscreens sit on top of the skin. So those are your zinc and your mineral sunscreens, and your chemical sunscreens actually like absorb into the skin and like absorb the UV rays. So the physical ones have them bounce off of your skin, and the chemicals actually absorb that, like those harmful rays.
So how do you know which one to pick?
It's really, I think, your preference. The mineral ones typically have zinc in them, so they give you that white cast. If you don't,
I hate that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
or it makes me look blue.
Yeah. Or so the chemical one would probably be a little bit better. But then there's also there's like some people don't like some of the chemicals in the chemical sunscreen. So it's kind of like your preference of what you want in and on your skin.
That is, because I have used sunscreen, and like you said, I don't like the ones that's like really white and cakey and make my skin look blue. Then I found like really nice creamy ones, like you said, that absorb into my skin. But then now I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, okay, what are these chemicals?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, yes, it's blocking sun, but it's still in my skin. Yeah, like it's still in my skin. So so I've been on this thing on what's the most natural sunscreen out there. Have you found that?
I have not yet. I'm still, because I also did another blog post on like clean beauty. So I'm still educating myself on like clean beauty and what that is and what chemicals to look for in your beauty products. But it's a lot of like learning about the ingredients in your products. And I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, that has pretty packaging. Like it smells nice. Let me try that one. And like I've started to like, okay, take a step back away from the packaging and focus on like what's in it. So those have been fun kind of ideas. And then I also love talking about mental health. I think that that's probably, other than like fashion, my like other really big pillar on my blog.
How did that, okay, so you evolved into so many different things, which is great. So you evolved from music to fashion, you know, to beauty, to mental health. How did you grow into the mental health pillar?
I think I've always struggled with like weight and my
shut up, really?
Yeah, my acceptance of like my body image.
Gotcha.
I mean, as women, I feel like we all have that like social image, the perfect body, and we're always like trying to obtain that, and it's such a struggle that I feel like I've like really tried to focus on just loving myself, and I feel like every woman needs a little bit of a reminder to do that. I've also struggled with a little bit of depression, so I've talked about that a little bit, how to have a positive mindset and a better healthy relationship with yourself. I feel like having a good relationship with yourself is the way to create good relationships with others. So it's kind of that ripple effect. If you love yourself, it's easier for you to love others. So
it's good that you're having this conversation too, because it takes the stigma away from mental health. I think there's like there's such a big stigma around like mental health and what does that look like. And then just from the standpoint that people look at mental health as a thing of you're crazy. It's like, no, you don't have to be a crazy person. You don't have to be suicidal or be in a really dark place, you know, where it's really bad for you to struggle with mental health. So kudos for you for doing that. Are you working with any organizations or anything like that?
Not really. Just kind of, I'm looking for things to do. There's just been so much like life and all these projects that I want to do. I'm starting to look into, okay, how can I like bring this message more? I've also started working with a therapist and working on, I have codependency. So just working through recovery in that and handling that mental aspect.
Forgive me, what is codependency? What does that really mean? I think, and the reason why I want to clarify that, because I think sometimes we use certain mental health jargon and not really know what that means.
Let me find actual, because like to describe it, it's childhood traumas that have caused like excess emotion
Mm-hmm.
So I struggle with like in my relationships, really. Like
With
that,
romantically or with friendships or all around?
no, all around.
Yeah.
I'm a people pleaser. That is one of the biggest signs of codependency, is that you always want other people to be happy. That you didn't build boundaries as a child. So you kind of just grown to like always want other people's acceptance. So that's something that I've had. Like I've always known I've been a people pleaser, but I never realized until working with my therapist that like this is a problem and that I need to like work through those childhood traumas to kind of see those signs and then work against them as I recover.
So it's so funny you say that, because I'm glad I asked, because I didn't know that's what it was. And I definitely suffered from codependency and did not know it. And because I jokingly say, but it's very serious, I'm a recovering people pleaser. Like I was such a big people pleaser. I didn't go to therapy per se. I started meditating, and through meditations, it became more evident to me that, okay, why am I this way?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where did it come from? And just starting to peel back at that. And I wouldn't say I may still have some residuals of it left over, but I'm definitely a different person than I was back in 2017.
Yeah, it's really crippling too. Like sometimes it can really mess with like your mental health. And yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because it by having it, you're not recognizing your own self-worth in situations, because you're so fixated on pleasing the other side, you're not realizing that it's really them that needs to please you, or it's not even worth your time. Yeah, I have several stories on this. I won't get too deep down into that road, but I have several stories.
Understanding this and realizing like I've gotten a lot stronger in my communication. I think that's a big thing that like I struggled with, was I always wanted other people to be happy and to please them. So I didn't feel like my opinion was really a valid one, or one that was needed in the conversation, and could only cause problems. So I would always shut down and kind of put it aside. And I've learned to use assertive language when I'm unhappy, and really just kind of talk about how to make both parties happy. So it's been a great learning experience.
I'm happy for you. I can't wait to see how you begin to evolve from this.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So speaking of partnerships earlier, have you ever had to deal with PR professionals as you develop content?
A little bit. Luckily, I've worked with a lot of very open companies, like ModCloth, for instance. They just asked that I create 2 outfits, and they sent me a bunch of clothes, and they just kind of like let me do whatever I wanted. They gave me a few like directions, like for the holidays, they wanted obviously holiday themed looks and backgrounds and things like that. So I did a lot of that, but I've worked with a lot of very open-minded like companies.
That's good. I'm so glad that you had a good experience working with PR professionals, because when I started doing this, I noticed that because I'm a PR professional, I'm an accidental PR professional, as we all know.
Uh-huh.
But as I just remember, like when I started, I started off working in an agency, and working with an agency, we began to like reach out to different bloggers for coverage, because we started to realize like, oh, these bloggers have more of a reach or more of an engagement than some of these magazines that, we're reaching out to. So at first it was really simple, we'll send them gifts and things like that. And then it evolved into this pay me per post. Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay. But then that became a struggle. And I think that was the thing that other bloggers and influencers didn't see, was that that became a struggle for us, because when clients hire us, they're hiring us to get them what's called earned media. And that earned media is like, how do you convince someone, a publication or a platform, to talk about you without paying for it? We have our ad people that's paying for it, but we need you to kind of generate these authentic, conversations and these authentic things. So it was like, okay. But what I did know is that we did begin, because it was a new profession and because it was new, we did begin to create these, campaigns and suggest influencers for different campaigns. Like one of my favorites was, I worked with Aflac some years ago, and we developed this campaign where we found this financial influencer who wrote some articles, who did some, some things. Well, I wouldn't say she wrote some articles, she wrote some blog posts. But because of her level of celebrity, her blog posts ended up being reposted in Forbes and like Huffington Post and things like that. And she was a really great spokesperson. And I remember like going through the things of finding her, and it was like a really good fit. But then it started getting to this point where it was like, okay, there's a saturation of influencers and bloggers, and they have like these certain followers. And so then it was like, everything is paid. And so then the problem was, well, if everything gets paid, where's the authenticity of, do they really like the brand? So then it was like, okay, how do we have this? So it's like, we're trying to like reach out to them, like, okay, how do we have this conversation of like, to get you out to authentically engage in this brand without, you paying, without us paying for it? Because if we're paying for it, people are starting to not buy it. Like they're starting to not believe it anymore. And so that was the reason why I started this conversation, because I know that we was running into this wall of everything is paid. And then the consumer or the brand is like, but where's the real stories? We don't have any real stories where they, like we want to see that they happen to try this on, and this is what happened, and this is the actual trial. Like, what is their actual experience with this product or this brand, without us telling them the story that we want them, Yeah. And so that was that was the conversation I wanted to have, because I think they thought that we were taking advantage of them when we started doing this. And I learned that it is true. Like some of them did begin to I found that some PR people were taking advantage of influencers, like basically giving directions as if they were paying them, but not. And I don't like that. But yeah. So what are your thoughts?
No, it's funny.
I said a lot.
It's funny you say that though, because that's basically my first job out of school. That's essentially what we did for link building. We would kind of reach out, and for instance, my biggest client, the client that I worked on the most, was Vegas.com. So we would reach out to fashion bloggers to be like, hey, I work in the marketing department at Vegas.com. I love your outfits. Would you talk about, hypothetically, if you were to go to Vegas, what would you wear? Where would you go? What dinner would you go to? Can you talk about the outfits that you'd wear? And they loved the idea. They'd write all these blog posts. I'd stay at the Aria because it's got the cool whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'd wear cool, and this is the outfit that I'd wear. I'd go to this Cirque du Soleil show and eat at this restaurant. It's all relevant content around the hotels in Las Vegas. And we'd have them put in a link to the website, and boom, we've got authority from this blog. So it's kind of funny. We wouldn't pay them to talk about these topics either. So it was kind of a similar situation that I was doing. So I feel like when companies or PR people reach out to me, I have a little bit of sympathy, and I kind of am like, okay, is this something, one, that my audience is going to be interested in? Is this something I'm interested in? Is this going to fit in with my content? And that's when I start to have those conversations with the person, and I'm like, okay, how can this be a mutually beneficial relationship that we can create from this?
But I also think too, with that in mind, and doing this, I feel like it's our job as PR professionals to not take advantage of you. Just because you gave me a one post doesn't mean I keep coming to you, and then I never invest in what you're doing. So it's like, you're always giving me what I need, but then it's not reciprocated. And so I started telling influencers to like, have a cap, on what you're willing to do. And then if they start to exceed that cap, say, hey, I've already given you this many posts. Moving forward, let's talk about, how we're going to do some partnerships. And then I also think too, for influencers, especially like new influencers, I really think that they should take this opportunity to start. And I was telling this to another influencer actually, to like start to measure the impact of these campaigns that they're doing that's earned media. So then that way they can take that data back and say, hey, I did this, non-paid, negotiation, partnership with this brand. As a result of me making this post, this brand got X amount of recognition. The client came back and told me that they got this amount, this much sales, things like that, because I think out in the back end, what's happening that influencers don't know is like, it is about your following, but it's more about like, can you give me a return on my investment? So if I do spend this money on you, am I going to get it back plus more? Because your followers are so engaged. Because like when we're doing it for PR is like more like visibility, just recognition, things like that. But if I'm starting to spend money, I'm expecting to see my money back.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love always at the end of my campaigns, I always send them like a little PDF, like case study almost, giving them those stats, telling them kind of the reactions that I got, if I got any verbal responses from close friends, or if friends told me that they went and picked up that brand, like I will write that in and kind of give them a little bit of a synopsis of how the post was responded to by my audience. Just so and then I feel like as either a PR person or the influencer marketing person in the agency, like they have to bring that information. So I feel like it also creates that relationship of like, okay, I'm a reliable person for you to like, that you're not going to have to do the heavy lifting that I've already done and set it out for you. So I always like to do that. Like we're working together, we're partners. So I feel like I should provide as much information as I possibly can to really create that authentic relationship.
Do you have any favorite brands that you've worked with?
Oh man, I think ModCloth is my favorite. Just because I grew up like I used to get their catalogs. That's how long I've been following this brand, and I loved their vintage styles. That was like typically what they first started selling. And now they sell like a wider range, but I've always loved their clothes. So the day that I got pick some outfits and style them and send us the photos, I was like over the moon.
That is a perfect match.
It was great.
Do you have a brand that wasn't such a pleasant experience? And you don't have to say what name, but have you ever worked with a brand that left a kind of a sour taste in your mouth?
I can't think of one off the top of my head. I did have a brand. I did a collaboration, I think through like Influencer or something. And they liked the post that I did so much that the brand actually reached out to me afterwards and sent me more product in like a different style. And I just didn't like the product. And I felt so bad that like I reached out and I was like, hey, I don't think I can write about this. It's just not the same like feel and like formula. I can't endorse this particular product. And they were completely they understood. They were like, okay, that's fine. Like, thank you for your feedback. But I felt really terrible.
That's actually good. I'm glad you have the integrity, to not feel forced to write something that you didn't feel was your truth. And I'm glad that you went back and told the brand why you're not writing about it, because they need that. Like, I always like feedback, regardless if it's good or bad. Like, one of the things that really helped me in PR, as you know, I didn't major in PR. I was, so when I got into PR, it was kind of like, well, I did take one class, but still, it was kind of like a learn as you go kind of situation. So when I started doing outreach, I remember when I first started doing outreach, I was not getting any placements. And I got so frustrated. I just started asking, like, why am I not getting anything? Like, why are you telling me no? And of course, all of them didn't tell me no, but when they finally did, I was like, oh, great. This is good information. So now when the client comes back and say, why didn't you get me in blah, blah, blah? It's like, because blah, blah, blah thinks this about you, or it needs more information, or this isn't, like I had information to give them. So either A, we can move along, or they can make adjustments where they need to make adjustments. So if you and other influencers are telling them the formula is off, they need that so they can go back and fix the formula before they start. Like, I would take heart if I made a brand, if I had a product and I'm trying to sell it to the masses, but 10 influencers, forget 10, 3, 4 influencers came back to me and said, this product sucks. I may want to go back and renegotiate or relook at, not renegotiate, but relook at how I'm doing things. But I would never know to do that if no one tells me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then it saves me money from making all these mass productions if you tell me ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, with that being said, what are your thoughts on being test subjects for a brand? Like and I say test, like being the first one to try before, they launch it to the public.
I love it. Honestly, I think that's what influencers should be. We should be those people that I hate when influencers open their PR boxes and share the whole experience. I think that that's kind of silly, but or it's kind of braggadocious almost. They're ooh, look, NARS Cosmetics sent me this box with the cool video in it. I'm I don't care. Just tell me if the product, I'm here watching your Instagram stories because I want to know if that product is good or what products you're using on your face. So I think that getting the latest, or for instance, that commercial that I talked about with In the Fro, she was one of the first people to try that mascara. She made this awesome commercial for them. And I'm heck yeah, I need to go buy that mascara as soon as it hits the shelves at Sephora. So it's I think that that's our jobs. I feel that we should be the ones creating that unique content. And I'm sure Urban Decay can do some kind of deal with her where they can buy the rights to that video and utilize it on their own Instagram and their own YouTube channel and things like that. It was an incredible little video that she created. So it's we should be those people creating these ideas to sell these products.
So where do you see your brand in 5 years from now? And who do you see yourself working with?
Oh man, the goal is very luxury. 5 years might be a little soon, but I want to work with those big makeup names, the Urban Decay and NARS and Dior. Obviously, I'm a big fashion connoisseur, so I love Dior. Dior just did one of their latest runway shows today, I think it was, and it's beautiful. And so I'd love to work with these big fashion houses in the future. But
speaking of Dior, do you have a Lady Dior bag or a saddle bag?
I do not have either of those, but I have the Diorama bag and my shoes. My Dior slingbacks are my pride and joy. I wear those shoes to death. They're my favorite in the world. But yeah, I would love to in the future work with those kind of brands. But I think that Victoria is definitely an influencer that I admire for her creativity and she stays true to her own brand and her own style, but still incorporates these brands and is very on brand for the brands as well, which I think is very nice how seamlessly the two brands can mesh together. So I'm hoping that one day I want that, I've loved creating very couture and out of the box photographs lately, kind of changing poses, making things a little bit less here's my outfit and a little bit more here's this motion or here's this unique way to look at an outfit.
Yeah, very editorial.
Yeah, I've been trying to do a lot more editorial work lately.
I've noticed.
It's been fun.
I've been paying attention to it. It has a very art-like quality to it.
Thank you. Yeah. And the photographers that I've been working with in the city have been absolutely incredible. I like come to them and I'm like, okay, I've got this idea. Here's a bunch of like photographs from online. I'm like, can you lay on the ground upside down underneath me as I like do this move? And they're like, yep, we're in. Like, and then
wait, they lay upside down, or are you exaggerating?
So like the photos that I took in the like shirt dress with the bow in the front, with like the bag, my photographer like laid on the ground by the river, like completely out flat to take that picture of me. It's really funny. That was also the same day we took my vintage chair downtown and stuck it in the middle of the street. It was like in April, so it was like early in quarantine and everyone was sheltered.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
The streets were completely empty. It was like just the two of us and two cops on the street. And yeah.
Did the cops say anything to you?
It was too funny because like all week we were planning this. I like sent her this photo and I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. This is the only time we will ever be able to take these photos because the streets are empty. Let's do it. And she's like, I'm in, let's go. We like put together a plan, figured out how we were going to get the chair down there. And we were like, oh God, I really hope the cops don't stop us. Like, this is so scary. And we get out, we're like, okay, no one's on the street. No one's out. Like, everything's okay. I put the chair down in the middle of the street and we hear, what are you doing? And I'm like, no. We've been found. Like, we won't be able, they're going to send us home. They're going to tell us to leave. They're going to fine us. And the cops like crossed the street and they were like, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, I'm working. I'm a content creator. And they're like, oh, you're a content creator? Okay, well, be safe, I guess. And they like continued on their way. And my adrenaline was like pumping the whole time. It was amazing. It was hilarious.
I'm glad you said content creator and not like influencer or blogger, because it kind of gave you this level of sophistication that they couldn't argue with. Like,
that's what I was hoping for. And then they also probably had no idea what it meant. So I was like, yeah, this is my job. This is what don't worry about it, sir. Keep going.
I like how you did that. How do you find your photographers?
So I found Chloe, the one who did that shoot with me, on H-Hub. It's like an app for creators, so you can find photographers, videographers, makeup artists. I think there might be fashion designers on there, or models, and I found her there. But mostly Instagram, actually. I've had 4 or 5 photographers reach out to me on Instagram saying that they liked my feed and they wanted to work together. So I've worked with like a couple film photographers that way, which was really fun and a unique experience because they're using analog. So it's not snap, 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 snap. They kind of have to be very focused with their choice and their subjects and things like that. So that's been a fun challenge to kind of challenge them and their skills as well as like my own, with still keeping that like movement and that editorial style. So it's been really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, how can we keep up with you and what do you have next and how can we support you?
So keep an eye out for my SEO course. I'm going to have you hold me accountable for that. So my blog is dollfacediaries.com and you can find me on Instagram. It's just Jessa.
Yay! I can't wait. Thank you, Jessa.
Thank you. This was so much fun. I always love talking to you, Vanessa.
Oh, you're making me blush. We have to, now the next project is, okay, I'm tasked with reminding you about the SEO project, and we have to do our music. We have to figure out what our music platform is going to be. We got to do, are we going to do a blog or a podcast, or we're going to do something?
Yeah, we'll definitely. I've got some ideas. We'll have another conversation about that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, This has been another fabulous episode of the DIMPRP Podcast. I'm looking forward to having you join us again.